Sarah Ferguson crisis. When you thought 2025 couldn't get any more dramatic for the royal family, Sarah Ferguson just said, "Hold my tea," and walked straight into what might be the most catastrophic PR disaster of her already chaotic career. We're talking about a woman who once had her toes sucked by a financial advisor on a yacht, and somehow this situation is worse. Yes, you heard that right. Worse than the toe-sucking incident. That's how spectacularly things have gone wrong. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's dissect how the Duchess of York went from quirky royal adjacent to potential persona non grata faster than you can say Jeffrey Epstein. Because trust me, this story has more twists than a royal family tree and more red flags than a communist parade. Right, let's start with the bombshell that's got everyone talking. Sarah Ferguson, affectionately known as Fergie to absolutely everyone who's ever read a tabloid, is now facing the very real possibility of having her Freedom of the City of York title stripped away. And if you're thinking, well, that doesn't sound too bad, let me put this in perspective for you. This is the same honor that was taken away from Prince Andrew in 2022 after his catastrophically awful association with the Virginia Giuffre case. Being in the same category as Andrew right now is like being told you've made the same life choices as someone who thought the Titanic looked unsinkable enough to skip the lifeboats. The City of York Council is holding a meeting in November, which is basically the municipal equivalent of being called to the headmaster's office, except instead of detention you might lose a title you've had since 1987. That's 38 years of being honored by the city, and it could all vanish because of an email. Not just any email, mind you, but possibly the worst email anyone's ever sent in the history of electronic communication, and yes, I'm including all those reply all disasters you've witnessed in office jobs. Now, before we get into the email itself, let's talk about what this Freedom of the City actually means. It's an honorary title given to people who've made significant contributions to the city or, in Sarah's case, people who married into the royal family and got it as a wedding present. It's basically the posh version of getting a toaster when you open a bank account. Traditionally, having the freedom of the city meant you could drive sheep through the streets or carry a sword or some other medieval privilege that's completely useless in modern society. But symbolically it's a big deal. It says, we respect you, we honor you, you're one of us. And now they're considering taking it away, which is the civic equivalent of unfriending someone on Facebook, except with way more paperwork and public humiliation. So what exactly did Sarah do to warrant this level of disgrace? Well, buckle up because this is where things get properly grim. It's been revealed that back in 2011, Sarah sent an email to Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, that Jeffrey Epstein. The convicted pedophile who was released from prison in 2010 after serving time for child sex offenses and who later died in prison awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. This is not a person you want to be emailing under any circumstances, let alone calling your supreme friend. Let's pause there for a moment because supreme friend is quite possibly the worst choice of words in the history of the English language. Not good friend, not old friend, but supreme friend. That's the kind of language you use for pizza toppings or court justices, not for convicted criminals who've been released from prison for horrific crimes against children. It's the linguistic equivalent of showing up to a funeral in a clown costume. Wildly inappropriate doesn't even begin to cover it. But wait, it gets worse. In this email, Sarah apparently apologized to Epstein for disowning him in a press interview. Think about that for a second. She felt bad about publicly distancing herself from a convicted pedophile. She thought that was something that required an apology. Most people would consider disowning a convicted child abuser to be the absolute bare minimum of decent human behavior, but Sarah apparently felt she needed to say sorry for it. Now, her spokesperson has since come out with what can only be described as a damage control statement that's doing about as much good as rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. They claim Sarah only sent the email because she was afraid Epstein was going to sue her for defamation. Which, let's be honest, is a defense that raises more questions than it answers. First of all, if someone's threatening to sue you for defamation because you've publicly distanced yourself from them, that's usually a pretty good sign you should stay distanced. It's not a cue to send them apologetic emails calling them your supreme friend. That's like someone threatening to sue you for calling them dangerous, and your response being to invite them over for tea and biscuits. Secondly, if you're genuinely afraid of legal action, you don't send chatty emails with friendly language. You get a lawyer. You keep all communication formal and professional. You certainly don't use phrases like, supreme friend, because that's exactly the kind of thing that'll get read out in court while everyone tries not to make eye contact with you. The timing of this email is also absolutely crucial to understanding just how catastrophic this whole situation is. This wasn't sent in the 1990s when Epstein was still moving in elite circles and his crimes weren't widely known. This was 2011. Epstein had already been convicted. He'd already served time in prison. His crimes were public knowledge. Anyone with access to Google could have found out exactly what he'd been convicted of. And yet Sarah still sent this email. That's not a mistake born of ignorance. That's not, oh, I didn't know about his past. That's a conscious decision to reach out to someone whose crimes were a matter of public record, apologize for distancing yourself from them, and call them your supreme friend. The mind absolutely boggles. Now, Councillor Claire Douglas, who's the leader of the City of York Council, has been refreshingly blunt about the whole situation. She told the Mail that they deplore the links and continued associations with Jeffrey Epstein by those carrying the York title beyond the time the gravity of his crimes became clear. That's politician speak for, what were you thinking? This is absolutely unacceptable and we want nothing to do with it. The council is now considering whether to table a motion to remove Sarah's honorary title at their November meeting. That's not a definite yes yet, but it's also not a we're looking into it and probably won't do anything. This is serious consideration of serious action, and the fact that they've gone public with it suggests they're prepared to follow through. What makes this particularly brutal is the precedent they've set. They already stripped this same title from Prince Andrew in 2022 after his disastrous association with Virginia Giuffre and his catastrophically bad Newsnight interview where he claimed he couldn't sweat and was at Pizza Express in Woking. If they've already taken the title away from Andrew, there's no way they can justify letting Sarah keep hers when she's been exposed as having sent apologetic emails to Epstein calling him her supreme friend. The council would look absolutely ridiculous if they stripped Andrew's title but let Sarah keep hers.